Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is our editor-in-chief at MacStories, Federico Ticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I've had some technical issues this week with the internet. The internet, you know what? I'll tell you, don't have your internet service go out during a pandemic because it's a little difficult when the companies won't send the people into your house and other things like that. So, cross your fingers that your internet doesn't go out. I've been struggling.
Sorry.
It's all right. I've been struggling with getting that back. Maybe that'll be a story for Unplugged or something at some point. Once I have it solved, though, I feel like when you're in the middle of a crisis like that, it's just all you'll hear from me is complaining and frustration. But I'm doing all right otherwise. So, and we've got, I'm excited because we got a big week coming up next week. We've got an Apple event coming up. And of course, we've got the Club MacStories anniversary, the 5th anniversary. And it's weird because that anniversary is it's very close to my anniversary with MacStories. So it's kind of fun to think that it's been that long, because I think I started working with you guys on the newsletter at around issue 25 or 26 or something like that. And now we're at like 230 something or other like that. It's a lot, and that's just the weekly one. And then we have the monthly log and all the other perks and downloadable content and other things we've done along with the podcast for club members over the years. And it's just kind of fun to look back and think about the past year, the past 5 years, and celebrate a little bit with a bunch of perks, which we're going to have a ton this year, getting those all ready for next week. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to start making announcements on Monday, and it's going to span this year. We're going to do it for a full 4 weeks, so a whole month of special stuff for the club members.
Yeah, and it's not just going to be like discounts and giveaways, right? We are actually planning lots of extra content and stuff that you can download, that you can read, that you can listen to. We have this whole spectrum of activities that we can cover, this exclusive content that we can share with members. And it's been obviously challenging to balance everything this summer with the reviews. And of course, there's an Apple event coming up, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. There's potentially new hardware coming in.
Right.
But we are going to try our best to come out with a very good lineup of exclusive content for members, because ultimately, while the discounts and giveaways are nice, I really do believe that people love the club because of that exclusive content that we produce on a weekly basis. So rest assured, there's going to be lots of exclusive stuff, both in the written form as well as for the podcasts and some other downloads that we're working on that will be available during the anniversary month and beyond, right? Because the things that we produce are not going away after the anniversary month. They stick around. But it's obviously a great time to join now, because you can join in on the celebrations, take advantage of the discounts that we're offering, maybe participate in some of the giveaways. But then obviously there's going to be the content that we're going to put out over the next 4 weeks and beyond.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, let's dig into the stories that we had this week. It's been another relatively quiet week, but Ryan did a review this week on an app called Focused Work. And Focused Work, when you first look at it, you'll think, oh, this is another Pomodoro technique app. And it can be that, and it works really well that way. But it's really a whole lot more, because it allows you to create multiple timers and kind of chain them together. So you can create almost like a workflow style chain of timers. So you could say I'm going to work for 45 minutes and then take 5 minutes off and then do another sprint of 30 minutes of something else. And you could put those together and set them up in the app so that it's counting them down and keeping you kind of on pace and on track with your work during that time. And I like it. I mentioned workflows because the UI of this app actually reminds me a little bit of Shortcuts, because it has, this sort of the colorful blocks that you can create and then use and combine together to create different kinds of focused sessions of work. And it's a brand new, 1.0 from Michael Tigas, and it looks really great, and I've enjoyed playing around with it. I haven't used it as much as Ryan has, but I could really see this being a neat way to, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed and a little distracted by things, just kind of putting together a bunch of blocks that keep you on task and keep the other noise out of your life, I guess.
Yeah, I really like this. I really like, of course, the idea of these customizable sessions that you can put
Right.
together by chaining like these multiple timers. And I really appreciate how this app has that iOS 13 sort of aesthetic that sort of reminds you of reminders, for example, with the multiple colors and the color picker, and of
Right.
course also shortcuts with these blocks that you can drag around and chain together. Obviously, this kind of stuff, this kind of functionality as an idea of chaining sessions together, it speaks directly to my heart. So
Of
this looks
course.
really good. And it's actually something that I'm seeing more and more developers adopt. I think it's an interesting trend, sort of mimicking the shortcuts UI for putting together these custom actions in apps. I think I mentioned this before. There's this beta that it's on Twitter, so you can probably sign up for the public test flight. This text editor called Taio, Taio, from the same maker, and this is totally a tangent, but allow me. It's from the same maker of JSBox, and JSBox is a JavaScript utility that is sort of like the power user alternative to Scriptable. Now, you can imagine Scriptable is already a power user app. So imagine the power user version of a power user utility. But the same developer is working on this text editor called Taio, which is sort of like, what if editorial came out in 2020? Which is a really fascinating idea because obviously editorial, the popular text editor that I used to use years ago, was discontinued last year. And now, of course, these developers is sort of coming in and saying, well, what if I took a crack at this? And they do have this sort of a very shortcuts-like action editor that lets you put together these custom actions by dragging around different blocks of visual actions, just like shortcuts and workflow. Really interesting. One of the very few betas that had made me go, oh, this is something that I should pay attention to. And that happens rarely these days.
Right.
So this all to say that anytime I see this sort of functionality, customizing sessions and flows by dragging actions around, you have my attention. So focused work is actually something that I have not played around with it yet, but I'm planning to because looking at the screenshots now, it really is intriguing to me.
Yeah, it is. It is an interesting app, and apologies to Michael if I butchered your last name, Michael. But great app, great 1.0. I know that he's thinking about adding shortcuts actions too. So stay tuned for those because I think that could be really interesting because you could do things like run a shortcut to start your timers, switch to your text editor, and play some music in the background, that sort of thing. So hopefully we'll see that as well relatively soon. What else do you have for us, Federico?
Well, no big deal. There's an Apple event next week.
Oh, just one of those, huh?
Just one of those. So next Tuesday? Is it Tuesday the 15th?
Yes, it's Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, Apple event, online event, of course, because of the pandemic, live from Apple Park, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So what is it? 1 p.m. Eastern. I know it's 7 p.m. for me here in Rome. So the usual time for Apple events. And this, the tagline of this event is "Time Flies."
Right.
And according to reports from various journalists, it appears that the focus of this event is going to be Apple Watch and iPad. And of course, we know, well, no, quote unquote, no, based on rumors and leaks in recent weeks, that Apple has been working on a new iPad Air. And according to the rumors, that iPad Air is going to have some of the design elements, the industrial design elements of the iPad Pro. So we should expect an iPad Air with the flat edges, with the flat sides, and maybe the liquid retina display, maybe the smart connector, maybe the Magic Keyboard. We don't know, but we're looking, I believe, at an iPad Air with Face ID, that iPad Pro design trickling down further into the iPad line. This is very exciting. This is very, very exciting. And then, of course, there's Apple Watch. And according to the rumors, of course, Apple has been working on the next major Apple Watch, the Series 6, as well as, per Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, a new separate lower-end Apple Watch model that is going to be more affordable, it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be a different model that should be announced alongside the new high-end Series 6 Apple Watch. I don't know what to expect, honestly, beyond the iPad Air, borrowing some of the design elements from the iPad Pro. It's been rumored that the Apple Watch Series 6 will have possibly a new sensor to monitor blood oxygen levels, which I think is really interesting, especially in the context of 2020 and COVID-19. Blood oxygen is one of the key values in terms of monitoring your symptoms as well. If you it's one of those things that it's absolutely important to keep an eye on. And other rumors were also suggesting that because of this sensor, Apple may be able to do interesting things like stress detection, for example, or panic attack detection, which I think in the context of not just your health, but also your mental health, is something that is really fascinating to consider.
Yeah, I should have been testing that for them this week. I mean, with all the internet problems I've had plenty of stress that they could get some numbers on.
You want to fill those stress circles, John?
Right, I do. I want to be one of their. No, I don't. Be one of their beta testers.
We should also say, of course, that we'll be ready at MacStories for the Apple event. I mean, it's not like we're slacking. I mean, we're gonna have articles, we're gonna have overviews, we're gonna have links. It's going to be all kinds of stuff that you and Ryan and me on the side, just, being an article director.
I was going to call you a director. Yes. So you're leading the orchestra. Yes,
a conductor. I will be the article conductor.
Yes. Well, I thought it went without saying that, of course, we will have wall-to-wall coverage at MacStories. We will be on the ball and sitting in our chairs watching the event. And yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. All right, Federico, I want to talk about a podcast that Apple launched this week, and that was with Oprah Winfrey. Apple has started to get into original content creation with podcasts, and they've had a deal with Oprah for, I think they announced it originally in 2018, and it was one of these deals that's like basically... the gist of it, as far as I read it, was anything that Oprah wants to do, Oprah can do, and Apple will publish it.
Sure.
And that's a pretty sweet deal if you're someone like her. But she has a TV show already, which is Oprah's Book Club on TV Plus, and that's been around for a little while. And this is kind of related to that in that it's an 8-part series with author Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote a book called Cast: The Origins of Our Discontents. And so, there's only one episode out plus a trailer, I think. And the opening episode goes into the author's thoughts behind creating the book, why she created it, what some of the big picture ideas are behind it, and then walking through each of the elements that are covered in the book during the podcast. So it's a podcast, it's a book, it's also part of her TV show on TV Plus, because that's the book of the month that they're covering. And it's just interesting to me to see Apple doing more and rounding out and leveraging some of these things between all their services, because this book is a big deal. It's one of the best sellers on the New York Times bestseller list, and there are other aspects of this that are pulled into it, because I know that there was an interview being done on the Beats One, and there's another aspect of this on News and News Plus, where Oprah Winfrey is curating some collections of stories on related topics about racism in America. And it's interesting to see them pull this all together. It's just another aspect of them pushing forward with multiple services on multiple fronts.
So moving on to App Stories, John, in this week's episode, we talked about widgets, but specifically we talked not just about the widgets that we're testing with iOS 14 and iPadOS 14, but more broadly about our approach to widgets, sort of some of the big ideas and sort of layouts that we are experimenting with. We discussed, for example, we had this entire conversation about how many pages we want to have on the iPhone home screen dedicated to widgets, and sort of how do we plan on balancing app icons, shortcuts icons, as well as widgets, and then where does the app library come in all of this? So I'm still thinking about the things we discussed. So if you missed that episode, I really recommend go check it out, because we really, it was basically just a brainstorming episode between John and me on the different approaches that we could take to widgets. I still believe that I am going to follow my own advice, so that's useful, about task managers and time tracking widgets on a second page of the home screen, but everything else is still pretty much in flux. So go check out that episode. And if you have any interesting ideas for like these crazy layouts that you're doing on your iPhone, do get in touch with us on Twitter. I welcome all suggestions, because it's a beautiful new crazy world with widgets on the home screen, and I'm up for all kinds of ideas.
Yeah, it really is. And I feel like we only just scratched the surface with that episode. It was a lot of fun. And I already feel like since we published it that I've changed my widgets and my layout a lot, like 3 times since then. So it's one of those things. It's just going to take a long time to settle in, and especially as we try new apps. So, but yeah, it'll give you some ideas of the kinds of things that can be done. This week on the club, we're back with MacStories Weekly, our weekly newsletter.
And that's all you need to know. We're back.
Yeah, we're back. It's one of those things where we take a couple of weeks off in the summer, both to recharge and also to kind of get ready for things like this upcoming event by Apple. So we're back, and we have a bunch of different stuff in there. I did a collection of some games that I've been collecting throughout this summer and earlier this year. Just little games that are fun to play that really probably were not deep enough games for me to write a full-blown review about, but that are a lot of fun. And so there's a lot there for people to dig into. We also preview, of course, the anniversary coming up. And we've got, because we were off for a couple of weeks, we've got tons of reviews of app debuts. So lots of apps have been coming out. We've been checking them all out. There's both updates and new things in there. Lots to check out, as well as some links. And Ryan did an extension column, kind of following up in a way on our topic on app stories, which is his approach to widgets on both iOS and iPadOS. Federico and I concentrated mainly on our iPhones during app stories, but Ryan's digging into both, and it's a really interesting story. Yeah. So check that out too if you're a club member.
Yeah.
All right, Federico, let me tell you about our sponsor this week. And this is our sponsor for both this episode of Unwind, but also MacStories, and that is Textastic, which is the complete versatile code editor available for your iPad and iPhone. This is a really amazing app because it really digs into all of the features, especially on the iPad, all the modern features that readers of MacStories love. I mean, there's things like split view, multi-windowing, dark mode, drag and drop. All that stuff is baked into here because it's constantly updated and has the latest features. And it's a code editor. It has syntax highlighting for all sorts of different languages. It's also a full-featured Markdown editor and has a built-in web server so that you can preview your Markdown right in Safari. It works with Git, so it works with things like working copy, so you can do that too. It has extensive syntax highlighting for all sorts of languages and other markup styles. It's got JavaScript and C and Swift and all sorts of different languages that are highlighted there. And the latest update added keyboard shortcuts for code comments, which is kind of an interesting feature to have. And I should have mentioned, too, that it has programmable keyboard shortcuts. So you can actually make keyboard shortcuts in this app. And it's one of the very few apps that I've seen that actually does this. Beyond that, there are new themes that are out there and auto completion of things like square brackets and curly braces, which is pretty neat. To learn more about Textastic, go to textasticapp.com or read the post on MacStories. There'll be a link in the show notes to that, too. Again, that URL is textasticapp.com for the very best code editor on iPad and iPhone. Our thanks to Textastic for their support of the show.
All right, John, for my Unwind pick, I am going to cheat. I'm going to be a cheater in that this Unwind pick is more about the potential of unwinding in the future. It's not necessarily about unwinding now.
All
because
right.
it's about a game.
That's interesting.
It's about, see, this is a sort of like a meta Unwind pick. It's about the intrinsic potential of relaxing.
Okay.
With this game, this game is Super Mario 3D All Stars.
All right. I should have known.
Coming out. It's coming out in like what, 10 days?
Yeah.
Maybe even less. Like in about a week. It's coming out next week on September 18th. Super Mario 3D All Stars for the Nintendo Switch. Now, why should you care about this game? Well, first of all, this is the second official All-Stars Super Mario collection that Nintendo has ever done. The first one, obviously, was on Super Nintendo over 20 years ago. Now Nintendo is doing it again, but this time they are collecting in a single game 3 different 3D Mario games. Super Mario 64, which came out on the Nintendo 64, Super Mario Sunshine, which came out on the GameCube, and Super Mario Galaxy, which originally came out on the Nintendo Wii. These are all gonna be together in a single package. It's available now for pre-order. Nintendo is doing this sort of odd thing where there's a limited time to. It's like a limited run edition, and both for retail and digital purchases. You can buy this game until March 2021 for some reason. I have no idea why they're doing this. You can pre-order it now. I pre-ordered the game digitally. It's going to be available on my Nintendo Switch at midnight next week. I will tell you, John, I played and finished all of these games. Then it's Super Mario 64. I did not play and finish on the Nintendo 64. I played the remake version on the Nintendo DS with the stylus. But both Sunshine and Galaxy I finished on the original consoles back in the day. And I will tell you that Super Mario Sunshine gets a lot of criticism from people. I have so many fond memories of this game. I love Mario Sunshine. I love the setting. Sunshine is set on the Isle of Delfino. It's this very tropical and summery and breezy setting. And the key gimmick of this game is that Mario is wearing this sort of how do you call it? It's like a water.
He's wearing like a ring.
It's not a jetpack. It's called the name of the item in the game is called the Flood, which stands for Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dowsing Device. It's like this water spouting thing that allows you to clean up the Isle of Delfino, which has been covered in goop by Shadow Mario. Shadow Mario is your arch nemesis, of course. So you wear this it's like a jetpack, but it's also like a cleaning device. That's a key gimmick of the game. And of course, Super Mario 64, the first 3D game, we all know Super Mario 64. Super Mario Galaxy came out on the Nintendo Wii, and it made a huge splash back in the day because of just how innovative it was. The key gimmick of Mario Galaxy is that you're hopping from planet to planet. It's like a gravity-defying game in that up is down and down is up. It's a very unique concept that you could play back in the day with the Wii remote. Now, of course, you will be able to play this with the Joy-Cons on the Nintendo Switch. You should go take a look at the trailer. If you've never played these Mario games before, they are all masterpieces in their own right. And I have fond memories of both Sunshine and Galaxy. I absolutely cannot wait to start again with Sunshine, just because it's a game that I haven't played in over 15 years, I think. And I've always wanted for Nintendo to bring it back. Now, these are not remakes. These are ports from the original consoles to the Nintendo Switch. So you shouldn't expect any graphical enhancements. Just, I believe that Sunshine and Galaxy will run in 16:9, so in widescreen format. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't think that Mario 64 will run in widescreen. So I will start from Sunshine and go from there. Yeah, so this is my pick. It's kind of cheating because it's not out yet. So my pick is that you go in and pre-order the game.
Well, the good thing about you making this pick now is that I can make it actually after I play the games, maybe. Would that
Perfect.
be cheating at that point? I've only ever played Super Mario 64 of that trio.
Interesting.
So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, a lot of the 90s were my dead era when I didn't play a lot of video games. So that's why you and I have such a disparity in knowledge about things like Pokemon.
That makes sense.
Yes. All right. So my pick is a movie, and it's called Made in Italy, starring Liam Neeson and his son. And this is an interesting movie. It's one of these movies that didn't make it to the theaters because of the pandemic. It's a story about a father and a son and the loss of Liam Neeson's wife, who had died years before when they were on holiday in Italy, in Tuscany, where they had a villa in the hills. And it's a beautiful house, or it was a beautiful house. The son starts the movie off needing to raise some money. And I'm not going to spoil the story, but he needs to raise some money. So he convinces his father to go back to Italy and visit the house and put it on the market and sell it. And so they revisit the house, and the house is in terrible repair. It's got in need of all kinds of work. And so they start fixing it up so they can sell it. And you can imagine it's about the history of the father and son, their relationship with their mother who has passed away, and the people that they meet in Italy along the way. It's kind of there are romantic comedy aspects to it and just general drama. But I liked it because it's just kind of one of those easygoing, quiet movies that has a lot of beautiful settings in it because the house is up in the hills and overlooking a valley, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful surroundings there, which is part of the whole attraction of the movie is that, the father and the son, they go back to sell the house, and you can imagine they start falling back in love with Tuscany and the house and all of that along the way. So it's an interesting story about family relationships more than anything else. And you should see it because I know, obviously, you're not too far from Tuscany. I'm not sure exactly.
Really not.
I'm not sure where exactly this is set. Maybe you would recognize it if you watch the movie, but a really great movie. I enjoyed it a lot. All right, Federico, that's it for this week. We're going to be back next week. And of course, because we've got an Apple event next week, you can expect a nice big recap from us of all of our coverage from the entire week. So that'll be a good way to kind of wrap up the week, especially if you have a busy week coming up. We'll kind of try to tie it up in a pretty bow for you and make it really easy for all the listeners. I want to thank again our sponsor for this episode, and that is Textastic. And of course, you can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram where he's at Ticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHSS. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.